Don't you? Don't you?
Sometimes you lose it. Supposed to.
Yeah.
You get enough wisdom not to answer that question.
Because you knew I was going to try to trap you, right? Yeah, not every older person is wise, are they? But here they start to leave. And then here's where I'm going to. Verse 10, when Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are your accusers? Has no man condemned you? She said, No man, Lord. And he said, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more.
Mercy.
Mercy, right? Here you have the law. This is what should be done. You know, I don't know about you. I mean, I have kids, and I don't know if you ever busted out this one on your kids. You know what? If you were living in the Old Testament and you were continually rebellious, you know what they would do? Take a guess, son. You know what they would do with you? Give a party? Kinda. It's called a rock party. They would take you and stone you to death. But you know what? That never really deters kids. Even telling them about that, you know, that's what happened in the Old Testament. And you know what? I have a feeling that probably didn't happen but once. Where's Johnny going? Or Elihu, I don't know. Let's get maybe an Israelite name. Boy, one time, hey, go clean your room. Yes, Mom. No problem, Mom. I will do it. Thank you, Mom. Can you give me another chore, too? But here you have the law. The law is justice, right? The law says what should happen. Justice. God is just. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that God is just? When he says in Micah, he says, what does God require of thee, O man? What's the first one? To do justly. Right? To love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. Think about that. Do justly. One of God's problems with the people in Israel in the Old Testament was some of the people who would judge were just unjustly, and they would take bribes and different things like that. But God requires justice. Justice, and the law is justice. You know, I mentioned this maybe a week or two ago about, you know, when you break the law, if the speed limit says 45 mile an hour and you do 45 and a half, are you guilty? You're guilty, right? And I hate to hear those kind of illustrations, you know, because then you start really looking at your own life. No, you can go 10 over. Everybody knows that. You can go 10 over, and that's still legal, right? We don't know where that one came from, right? No, you can't go 10 over. Now, sometimes they'll let you go over, but you can't do it. If you do 45.1 mile an hour, you're guilty. You're a lawbreaker. Ooh. Man, that's what the law says, right? Have you ever stole something? Nah, I never stole anything. I've been a Christian for 50 years. You ever taken a paperclip from work without asking? Yeah, but that's not really stealing. Is it? Man, you see how this could go? That's the way the law sees it. The law says, hey, you took something that wasn't yours. You're guilty. We're going to sentence you. So here you have this contrast of the law. This is what Moses says we should do with her. What are you going to say, Jesus? They're thinking, man, we got it. Here's this guy. There's this love guy, you know. He goes around saying, love one another. Love your enemies. We're going to get him on this one. We're going to show that he's not a true prophet. He's not a prophet sent by God. So Jesus answers in the beauty of wisdom, doesn't he? Jesus didn't say that the law was wrong. He just said, all right, you made yourselves the judge. So go ahead, carry it out. Whoever's without sin, let him be the first to do it. And that's when the conviction came in. So then here you have the law and you have mercy. They've come and they've met together. And Jesus says, has no man condemned you? Now, Christians experience condemnation. You know, condemnation is where somebody looks at you and says, you're guilty. I'm going to condemn you. Right? You're guilty. Have you ever been judged before? Has someone ever judged you? Have they ever condemned you, wrote you off, say that you're not worthy of this, you're guilty, this, and this? It's a hard thing, isn't it? Christians suffer from condemnation. And he says, I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more. So Jesus wasn't given just a free ticket here to her. He wasn't saying that what you've done is right. But he did justly, but he also loved mercy. Right? Do we love mercy? Do we show mercy to other people? Mercy is one of God's attributes. And you know what? We really don't have much mercy in us apart from God. You know, people can be pretty cruel, can't they? People can be cruel to one another. Look at some of these leaders throughout history. Hitler, Pol Pot, Stalin, just without even their conscience has been long gone seared, right? Send people to their deaths just because of who they are. I mean, that's unspeakable. That's like an animal, isn't it? Somebody that could do something like that. Now, so we as believers, we are to have justice. We are. We're supposed to operate in justice. Right and wrong. This is right, that's wrong. And those lines of division are very blurred in our day, aren't they? Right? Hey, it's okay. We love one another. We can do whatever we want to. We're in love. You know? We're in love. That's not what God says, does He? God says it's wrong. You're supposed to be married. If you're going to act like married people, get married, right? That's what the law says. That's what God says. This woman here, she was in adultery. They caught her in the very act. Man, justice. Justice needs to be served. That's what the law says. The law just wants to deal out justice. And then here comes mercy. Here comes a woman, Jesus says, I'm going to show mercy upon her. I'm not going to condemn you. Because the Son of Man came not into the world to condemn the world. That's not why Jesus came. I mean, if anybody could have done the condemning, right, it should have been Jesus. Because when we condemn people, you know, like they always say, if you point your finger, you got 3 pointing back at yourself. Right? We ourselves know that we've blown it too. We've blown it too. But to have justice, to act justly, but to love mercy. If you're just, like Moses. Boy, Moses got excited. I'm serving God. So he goes out. I'm gonna defend God, defend the honor of God. Uh-oh, there's an Egyptian harassing an Israelite. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to mete out some justice here. So what's he do? He goes and he kills him, right? Justice. He was just. He's not going to mistreat him. And then after that, you know what Moses had to do? He had to go into exile for a while, right? He had to go on a little sabbatical. And then, so here you have, some of us are very good at justice. You're wrong. That's wrong. But we need to be balanced, right? He says to do justly, and to really like mercy. really be fond of mercy. That's not what he says, is it? He says to love mercy. Now, Jesus loved mercy. You know, here, Jesus said, whoever's without sin cast the first stone. He could have done it. Jesus could have cast the first stone. Was he qualified? Sure was. So there's something beautiful that when judgment is needed, mercy steps in. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Now mercy doesn't take away from the justice of God at all, in one bit. It's part of who God's character is. Remember when he reveals who he is, he causes his goodness to pass before Moses. Remember? He hid him in the cleft of the rock. And you remember he said, the Lord God. And you remember some of the characteristics, some of the attributes he said about himself? Anybody remember any of them? Remember the Lord God?
Long-suffering.
Long-suffering. I thought the God of the Old Testament was a big meaning. Long-suffering. Anybody remember any others?
Full of mercy.
Right? Mercy. Long-suffering. Showing mercy. Right? To generations. Showing mercy. By no means, what? Clearing the guilty. Here you see justice. Mercy. We love justice because it's inside of us. God's put it in us. When somebody cuts you off in traffic, don't you want to see them pay? I had the most exciting thing. I think maybe it was Patrick telling me. He says somebody was speeding past us. These guys were racing. Is that you, Patrick? And then they went up a little further and the cop pulled them over. Oh, doesn't that feel good? Don't you just love that? When we were coming back from Pennsylvania, man, we had this guy just cutting, weaving in and out, just passing us. He was doing at least 85. And something rose up in me. Man, that guy, he needs to get what's coming. And then we went up the road a little further and a police had pulled him over. It's like you're driving, saying, but then you're on your way to an appointment or you're late. And you're speeding a little bit. And you're having to cut through a little bit of traffic. You know, you're doing a little bit of Evel Knievel kind of stuff. All of a sudden you cut somebody off and they lay on the horn. Hey, buddy! Can't you see I'm in a hurry? Right? Now all of a sudden it's on the other foot. The shoe's on the other foot. Or the police officer pulls you over.